So when we speak about Rastafari, yes, we talk about a way of life, um, a way of behaving, a way of living your life. But there is also a theological, doctrinal foundation, yes, and uh, speaking from the name, yeah, starting from the name Rasta, it comes from Rastafari Makonnen, which was a king born July 23rd, 1892, in the town of Ejarsagora in Ethiopia, which then became the king of kings, the emperor of Ethiopia, when he was crowned the 2nd of November 1930 in the cathedral of St. George in Addis Ababa, taking the new name of Haile Selassie The First, which translated from Amharic means the power of the Holy Trinity. So the first concept of Rastafari is that Haile Selassie the First is divine. That's why we call ourselves Rastafari. So why Haile Selassie the First is divine? We believe that Haile Selassie the First is the second coming of Christ. Yes, so he's not just an ordinary king, an ordinary emperor, but is actually the second coming of Christ in his kingly character. So why all of this? Why an Ethiopian king is revered by Rastafari as, as the second coming of the Messiah? Where do we find written such a thing? And why all that started in Jamaica? So where is the link between all these factors? Well, let me tell you a story. Many years ago, talking about 18th, 19th century, eh, in the States, in the Caribbean, there were groups called the Baptist groups. They were Christians, but they were kind of peculiar. Why? Because they were announcing that the second coming of Christ was very near. So they were prophesying that Christ was going to come back in his second advent, but that this time, he would not only be um, a spiritual master, not only a rabbi, yeah, not only a teacher, but this time he was going to be the King of Kings, a liberator. Yes, and even more important, he was coming back as a black man, as an African man, because those Baptist preachers, they were African Christians. Yes, so in Jamaica, people in the 19th century was prophesying about the second coming of Christ, saying that it was very near. They were looking into the scriptures and finding that the prophets of the old days said actually that Christ had to come back for a second time, but this time as a king, as a powerful and mighty king, which would have liberated the people, which would have freed people from slavery. So this king would have established a kingdom of righteousness, of justice, of peace. He would have been a vessel of justice for all the nation of the world. So we're talking about Isaiah, talking about Ezekiel, Zacharias, yeah, we're talking about those prophets that centuries ago were talking about the second coming of Christ. And Christ himself in the Gospels said that he was going to come back after 2000 years. But this time he would have had a new name, which was not the same name of before. Eh? So this new name is Haile Selassie the First. So what happened now? It happened as such a beautiful thing that when the news of the coronation of Haile Selassie the First from Ethiopia reached Jamaica, a group of people which they were already well educated in Christian culture and knowledge in the Christian faith. They knew the Bible very well, yeah, because Jamaica people learn Bible from youth. So they start to research and research, and they found out that those same titles which were given to Haile Selassie the First, the day of his coronation, they were actually titles of Christ. So he was the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He was the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. He was the elect of God, and he was the light of this world. So they say, yes, it's him, Christ in his second advent, is Haile Selassie the First. He's an Ethiopian, and not by chance he's the 225th descendant from King David and King Solomon, because it is said that Christ must come through the lineage of Judah, through the lineage of David. So Christ must be a descendant of King David and King Solomon. And Haile Selassie the First is the direct descendant from that family, from that lineage. So it's like all things were falling into place. Yes, and those early Christians, man like Howell, Heinz, Archibald Dunkley, they got the revelation that yes, Christ was finally returned with a new name, which was Haile Selassie the First, and they start to preach this beautiful gospel. Yes, starting from the countryside of Jamaica, then reaching into Kingston, yeah, the big cities, in the ghettos, in the amongst the poor people, amongst they have not, yeah. So they start to preach the second advent of Christ, and these had an incredible echo in the heart of the people, because those people, they were Africans, that they had been taken away from the motherland and they lost their original identity. They didn't really know from which country they were coming from. They didn't know even the real name they had. So Haile Selassie I came to give a new identity, yeah, to these Africans of the diaspora, because it is said that during the second advent he would have gathered all of his children scattered, yes, in the diaspora, even in the islands of the sea. That's what Isaiah says, yes. So this beautiful revelation of Rastafari started to go around and around, and man teaches man, yeah, and the movement started to grow, and people was finding in Rastafari what they have been looking for their entire life. Yes, Rastafari movement and doctrine gave them identity, gave them a name, gave them a way to behave, a conduct, yeah, a way to live, a way to speak or not to speak. Gave them the conception of 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 God as a black ruler which came to establish this kingdom of righteousness and to uh, bring back the people to an original state of life in which they were all kings and all queens. So this is the first conception of Rastafari movement, the divinity of Haile Selassie the First, which is shared amongst all Rastafaris. And this is exactly, in fact, what really makes you a Rastafari, you know, because it is great to have dreadlocks and to have idle food and to have, you know, to listen to reggae music and to to believe into a good way of living. But what will really make you a Rastafari is the conception of the divinity of Haile Selassie the First. And this is not to exclude anybody, yeah, because there are many people which are connected to Haile Selassie, even though they do not believe in the divinity of Haile Selassie, but they revere him as a great king, as a great figure, as a great prophet as well, yeah. So it is all good because there are some that they will declare him as God, some of them will declare him as a great king, some of them will declare him as a prophet. It is all good, and we are all connected by the same principles. But what really stands at the foundation of Rastafari is the concept that Haile Selassie the First is not a mere man, is not an ordinary man, but is in fact Christ in his second advent. And why in Ethiopia? Because Ethiopia is the promised land of the Bible. We think often about the promised land as Palestine, yeah, ancient Israel, yeah, the Middle East. But truly, we know that Ethiopia is the land that has been given the blessing, because ancient traditions say that the Ark of the Covenant, which is the symbol of the unity and of the covenant between God and man, was moved from Jerusalem to Ethiopia. Yes, was moved. So wherever the ark is, there is the blessing of the Almighty. So the Ark of the Covenant is still there in Ethiopia. So that's why we Rastafari talk about Ethiopia as a real promised land, because Ethiopia has a tradition, yes, of Bible culture, which goes very back in the time. In Ethiopia we find Ethiopian Jews, yeah, Hebrews, the Felasha. They were Jews that brought basically to Ethiopia the original way of Judaism, and they are still there. Yeah, in Ethiopia, Christianity arrived without persecution, without bloodshed, without fighting, without martyrs, none of that. Ethiopia accepted Christianity as the first kingdom on this earth, before Rome, before all the other places on this earth. Ethiopia was declared a Christian country. Yes, so in Ethiopia we have the most original, most ancient way of Christianity, really close to the apostles. Yes, it's a very ancient form of Christianity, which we believe to be the originary way. Yes, so Ethiopia is a very special place, and it is written in the Bible that Ethiopia shall stretch forth the hands unto the Almighty. So for a numbers of reasons, we see Ethiopia as the holy land, as the holy Israel, true black Israel, which is then finally also the place where the Almighty come and establish his kingdom.